I always believed betrayal had a certain sound. A scream. A slap. A door slamming shut. But the moment I caught them, it was silent. Deadly, gut-twisting silence. My name is Elena Carter, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought my life was, not perfect, but secure. Married to Daniel, my college sweetheart, living in a sunlit house in the quieter part of Phoenix, and close to my only sister, Tessa. That closeness was something I had always cherished, until the night I saw her standing in my husband's room, wearing my robe. It began subtly, too subtly to even notice at first. Tessa had moved in temporarily after a messy breakup with her boyfriend, Craig. I welcomed her with open arms. Stay as long as you need, I told her, believing that family came first. She was younger than me, just 25, vibrant, unpredictable, while I was the grounded, responsible one. My husband Daniel had always been polite with her, sometimes even teasing her like a brother. Or so I thought. The first red flag should have been the late-night laughter from downstairs while I was in bed. I would hear them, Tessa and Daniel, talking in the kitchen, whispering, chuckling. But I brushed it off. He's just being nice, I told myself. She's going through a tough time. But something inside me, some cold instinct, started to whisper louder. One afternoon, I came home early from work. I wasn't expected until 6, but a cancelled meeting brought me home at 4. I remember the eerie quiet of the house when I stepped inside. The sound of the clock ticking. The faint hum of music from upstairs. That's when I heard a laugh, light, flirtatious, and distinctly feminine. I climbed the stairs slowly, heart pounding for reasons I didn't yet understand. My footsteps quiet on the hardwood floor, I paused outside the bedroom Daniel and I shared. The door was slightly ajar. And through that crack, I saw Tessa. Wearing my robe. She was standing by the mirror, running a hand through her hair. Her makeup was fresh. She looked flirty. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. And then, Daniel walked out of the master bathroom in just a towel. He didn't see me at first. Hey, he said to her, grinning. You look. Then he saw me. His smile faltered like a candle snuffed out by wind. Elena, he said, stepping back. You're home early. Tessa turned around, startled, and when our eyes met, she froze like a deer caught in headlights. Elena, she said, her voice higher than usual. I just. Just what? I asked, keeping my voice calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that scares even me. Daniel stepped forward, reaching for his shirt. It's not what it looks like. Those were the exact words that made my skin crawl. I backed away slowly, my legs trembling. Right, I whispered. Not what it looks like. And then I walked out. But that wasn't the end. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake replaying every moment. The laughter, the excuses, the way Tessa had gotten just a little too comfortable in our home. I thought about the text I saw 2 weeks ago on Daniel's phone when he left it unlocked. She's clueless. But I hate lying to her. You know that. It had no name, but I had assumed it was about something at work. Now I wasn't so sure. The next morning, I confronted them at breakfast. Tell me the truth, I said. Are you two sleeping together? Tessa nearly dropped her coffee. Daniel stared at me. No, he said too quickly. God, Elena, I'd never. Then explain what I saw. Tessa jumped in, I was just borrowing your robe. I had a shower and forgot mine. In our bathroom? I asked. Daniel rubbed his face. Okay. It looked bad. But nothing happened. But I wasn't an idiot. And I wasn't done digging. That day, while they were out of the house, I opened Daniel's laptop. I know how that sounds. I hated snooping. But instinct pushed me past guilt. I went through his emails, his chats, and then, his deleted folder. That's where I found the photo. It was taken in our backyard. Tessa, wearing my bikini, sitting on Daniel's lap. His hands were around her waist. I thought I would throw up. There were messages too, weeks of messages. Some flirtatious. Some downright explicit. Most were deleted, but a few remained, as if he'd forgotten to scrub the digital trail clean. I printed them all. Every message. Every photo. When they got home, I laid them out on the table like evidence in a trial. They didn't deny it this time. Daniel lowered his head. Tessa burst into tears. It just happened, she sobbed. We didn't mean for it to. To what? I spat. To destroy me? To stab me in the back? How long? Daniel muttered, 3 months. 3 months. My own sister. My husband. The room spun. I left. I couldn't even hear them anymore. I walked out the door and didn't look back. But what I didn't realize then was that the worst wasn't the affair. The worst was still hiding. Waiting to be uncovered. And when I did, it would burn everything to the ground. Betrayal breaks you. But it also sharpens you. After I found out about Tessa and Daniel, I didn't cry, I calcified. For the next 3 days, I didn't answer their texts. I didn't return to the house. I stayed at a friend's place, Harper, my colleague and one of the few people I trusted. Harper didn't ask questions. She let me sleep in her guest room, brought me tea, and watched as I stared blankly at my phone screen. On the 3rd day, she finally said, "Are you going back?" Not to forgive them, I replied, my voice hollow. To get answers. Because something still didn't add up. Daniel and Tessa swore it had only been a one-time thing that turned into a mistake. But the messages I found said otherwise. And there was one message, one Daniel had sent Tessa, that kept haunting me. She'll never find out. Not unless she digs too deep. What didn't they want me to find? I returned to the house that Friday afternoon when I knew neither of them would be home. I parked a few blocks away, entered through the side gate, and used the spare key I still had. The house felt colder. Emptier. Like the soul had been sucked out of it. I didn't go into the bedroom. Instead, I went to the attic. Daniel never let me clean there. He always said it was his storage sanctuary. At the time, I thought it was adorable. Now? Suspicious. I pulled down the ladder and climbed into the dust-smelling shadows. Cardboard boxes, old Christmas decorations, college memorabilia. And in the far corner, a small black lockbox. It wasn't there last year. I was sure of it. It was locked with a digital code. I stared at it for a long time, then entered Tessa's birthday. Beep. Unlocked. My stomach turned. Inside were papers. Photos. Notes. But nothing prepared me for what I found at the bottom, a paternity test envelope. Dated 4 years ago. The name on it. Daniel Carter. Tessa Bennett. And one word circled in red. 99.99% probability. The page blurred. I blinked. What the hell was I reading? I rifled through the papers again and found something worse, a birth certificate. Issued in Colorado. Mother, Tessa Bennett. Father, Daniel Carter. The child's name, Liam Carter. Born in secret. Born before Daniel and I were even married. And then, photos. A baby. A small boy with curly brown hair. Tessa holding him. Daniel standing beside her. Smiling. I stumbled back, gripping the edge of a dusty shelf. The walls felt like they were closing in. They had a child together. Not just an affair. Not just betrayal. A life. A hidden life. And it had been going on long before I ever suspected. I sat in my car for an hour afterward, shaking. I couldn't cry. Couldn't scream. I just kept looking at the birth certificate in my hands like it was some ancient scroll that rewrote my past. Tessa had gotten pregnant while I was with Daniel. He had married me after their child was born. He had lied. 4 years. And she had pretended to be the broken sister who needed my help. Why didn't they tell me? Why hide the child? Then a horrifying thought struck me. Where was Liam now? And why had they both pretended he didn't exist? That night, I confronted Tessa first. I waited outside the yoga studio where she taught evening classes. She looked surprised to see me, then guilty. Always guilty. Elena. Cut the act, I snapped. Where is he? She blinked, her expression blank. Liam. Your son. Her face went white. How do you know that name? I held up the envelope. You should have locked it better. Tessa took a step back, her voice trembling. You weren't supposed to. No? Yeah, I figured. What I don't know is where the hell you're hiding him. Her eyes filled with tears. He's not with me. He never was. What does that mean? I gave him up, she whispered. Those words hit me like a slap. You what? I gave him up for adoption when he was 2. Daniel didn't want anyone to find out. He said it would ruin his life, his marriage to you, his career. So we agreed to pretend he never existed. I stared at her. So you lied to me, to my face, every single day for years, because he told you to? Her voice cracked. It was more complicated than that. I loved him. I thought he'd leave you, eventually. But he didn't. So I stayed close, hoping. Then when Craig and I split, it just happened again. I couldn't hear anymore. I turned and walked away, her voice trailing behind me. Please, Elena. Don't tell anyone. It'll destroy everything. I didn't care. They destroyed me first. I drove to Harper's house in silence. My hands were steady. My mind, oddly clear. I had to talk to Daniel. Not to hear excuses. But because I needed to know what else he was hiding. The lies had stretched so far, they no longer surprised me. But that night, Daniel finally told me everything. And it twisted my stomach in ways I'll never forget. I didn't call. I didn't warn him. I just showed up. Daniel was home, alone. The house looked dim, quiet, its lights flickering softly against the walls like they, too, were hiding something. He opened the door with a hesitant expression. Elena. I walked right past him, clutching the envelope in one hand and the photo of Liam in the other. I want the truth, I said. Start from the beginning. Don't skip a second. He closed the door slowly, like he was preparing to be locked in a cell. Maybe he was. Elena, I never meant for it to happen like this. Start talking, I snapped. Or I'll make sure everyone, including your company, your parents, and every person who's ever respected you, knows what kind of man you really are. He nodded, sat on the armrest of the couch, and dropped his head into his hands. It started before us, he said. Way before. 7 years ago. He and Tessa had met before I introduced them, during a summer internship in Colorado. I had no idea. I was studying abroad that year. He didn't mention her then, and she never brought it up. We weren't serious, he said. But we hooked up. A few times. And then, she got pregnant. Why didn't you tell me? I demanded. Because by then, we weren't speaking. She ghosted me. I didn't know she was even pregnant until months later, right before I proposed to you. I froze. So you proposed knowing she was carrying your child? Yes. Why? Because I loved you, he said simply. Tessa was a mistake. A ghost from before. I thought she'd go away. She did, for a while. Then she came back when Liam was born. He stared at the floor, his voice quiet. She begged me to be part of it. Said she couldn't do it alone. So I helped. Secretly. I gave money. Visited sometimes. You never knew because I kept it far away. She lived in a different city. I paced the room, holding back the scream in my throat. You chose her and him over me. No. I chose to protect you. I didn't want this to become your burden. That's not love, Daniel. That's cowardice. He nodded, shamefully. And then came the part that broke what was left of me. 2 years after Liam was born, Tessa wanted more. She said she still loved Daniel. That she never stopped. That she'd raise the boy with him, if he'd leave me. She threatened to tell you everything, he said, eyes dark. Said she'd ruin our wedding. So you gave her what she wanted. I convinced her not to say anything. Gave her money. Helped her get back on her feet. And when that wasn't enough? I told her, he hesitated. I told her to give Liam up. My blood ran cold. You told her to give up her own child? She wasn't stable. She was spiraling. I couldn't let her drag me down with her. It wasn't about him, it was about survival. My hands trembled. You let your son become a stranger to save your image. He's not part of this life, Elena. He never will be. He's a human being. I shouted. Your son. Not a secret to be erased. I know. But it's too late. The silence stretched between us. Everything I thought I knew about Daniel, the man I loved, trusted, built a future with, was unraveling, thread by ugly thread. I saw him for what he was now, a man who never wanted truth, only convenience. I turned toward the door, but his voice stopped me. Elena, wait. There's one more thing. I froze. After Tessa gave him up, she never stopped blaming me. She stayed close. Pretended to be over it. But she wasn't. He stood. She planned it. Coming to live here. Reconnecting with you. Reinserting herself into our life. She told me, if I didn't take her back, she'd make sure you found out. I slowly turned. And you let her move in anyway? I didn't have a choice. You always had a choice, Daniel. You just kept choosing her. I walked out. Again. For the last time. This time I didn't take anything with me. Not even the photos. He wasn't worth it. Later that week, I met Tessa again. This time, I didn't scream. I didn't ask questions. I handed her a printed photo of Liam and said, he's not a mistake. He's your son. Stop hiding from him. She cried. Tried to apologize. I didn't care. But the story wasn't over. Because 2 days later, I received an email from a private address. Subject line, are you Elena? Inside was a message. My name is Gillian Kane. I adopted a boy named Liam 5 years ago. He's been asking questions. About where he came from. You're listed as an emergency contact on an old document we found. He wants to know his real family. I dropped my phone. They hadn't erased everything. And Liam was still looking. I thought the story ended when I walked away. But fate has a cruel sense of timing. Because when Liam showed up in my life, he didn't just want answers. He wanted the truth no one else would give him. I stared at the screen, barely breathing. The email felt surreal, like someone had pulled a thread from the past I tried to bury and yanked it into my present. Gillian Kane. Adoptive mother of Liam Carter. And somehow, I was on an old contact form? I called the number she listed. She answered on the second ring. Hello? This is Elena. I got your email about Liam. A long pause. Then a gentle voice said, thank you for calling. I wasn't sure you would. We agreed to meet at a small family cafe on the east side of town the next afternoon. I arrived early, ordered chamomile tea I never touched, and sat facing the door. At 2:06 p.m., Jillian walked in. She was in her early 40s, graceful, composed, and behind her, Liam. The moment I saw him, my heart twisted. He was 7 now. Brown curls. Big eyes. A nervous energy, clutching a small toy car in his hand. He looked so much like Daniel. Too much. But there was something else in his face. Something quieter, more curious, maybe me. Maybe Tessa. Maybe neither. Jillian sat down across from me, Liam beside her. "Hi," I whispered. Liam tilted his head. "Are you my aunt?" I blinked. Yes. Yes, I am. He smiled, softly. Cool. Jillian did most of the talking at first. She told me she and her wife had adopted Liam at age 2 through a closed agency in Colorado. He had started asking questions about where he came from. The agency couldn't disclose much, but they had found an old file with my name listed as an alternate family contact, likely from the brief period when Daniel supported Tessa in secret. He's been drawing pictures, Jillian said. Of people he's never met. Places he says he remembers. We thought he might need clarity. I nodded, still trying to swallow the lump in my throat. Then Liam asked. Did my mom love me? I froze. Jillian looked at me, unsure. I reached across the table and took a breath. Yes, Liam. She loved you very much. But, sometimes grown-ups are scared. And they make bad decisions. But they're still thinking about you, even when they can't say it. His eyes glistened, but he didn't cry. He just nodded slowly. Then came the harder question. Was my dad nice? I hesitated. I don't know him very well anymore, I said carefully. But I think you deserve to know your story. And if you want, I can help you find pieces of it. Liam smiled again. I want to know everything. That night, I drove home feeling something I hadn't in weeks. Purpose. I didn't care if Daniel and Tessa wanted to keep pretending. A child had been born into this mess, and that child wanted answers. I called Daniel the next day and told him I met Liam. He went silent. You have no right, he started. I have every right, I snapped. You kept him a secret. Lied to me. Lied to yourself. But he's here. And he's asking questions. You can't just. He asked if his father was nice, Daniel. I told him I didn't know anymore. That shut him up. I'm going to help him, I continued. You can either face what you created, or keep hiding like a coward. But I'm not pretending anymore. He hung up without another word. 2 days later, Tessa showed up at my door. Tears streamed down her face. You met him? Yes. I didn't think I'd ever see him again. Well, maybe you should have thought about that before signing him away and crawling into my bed, with my husband. She winced. I deserve that. I didn't argue. But if you let me, she whispered, I want to meet him. I want to say sorry. My fists clenched. He's not a redemption project, Tessa. You don't get to use him to fix your guilt. I'm not trying to fix anything. I just want to know if he's okay. Just once. I stared at her, unsure. Then I sighed. I'll ask Jillian. But this isn't about you anymore. It's about him. And he comes first. Always. Tessa nodded, wiping her eyes. Thank you. I didn't thank her back. The next weekend, we met again at the park. Jillian brought Liam. I brought Tessa. When Liam saw her, he tilted his head. You look like me. Tessa dropped to her knees, hands shaking. That's because I'm your mom. He blinked, confused. But I already have a mom. Jillian stepped forward and knelt beside him. You can have two. Liam turned to Tessa. Did you miss me? Tessa's face broke. Every single day. He walked to her, slowly, and handed her the toy car. She burst into tears. And I stepped back, watching it all unfold. For a second, the world was still. No betrayal. No lies. Just a child, finding pieces of where he came from. But peace didn't last. That night, I got another email. From Daniel. If you keep pushing this, I'll make sure you regret it. You don't know. Daniel's threat didn't scare me. It confirmed what I'd felt in my bones for weeks. This wasn't just betrayal between lovers. It was betrayal that crossed every moral line. And when I found the last secret, it made everything else look like a warm-up. I sat in my car, Daniel's email glowing on the screen. There's more to Liam's adoption than you realize. Stop digging. Every word screamed guilt. And something about the phrasing, more to the adoption, clung to my chest like a wet shirt I couldn't tear off. I wasn't going to let that go. I called Harper. I need a favor. Do you still know that friend who works at Child Services? It took 4 days. 4 long, anxious days. Then Harper sent me a text. I got something. But you need to see it in person. We met in her office after hours. She handed me a printed copy of a scanned form, one that Child Services had used to close Liam's adoption. On the bottom was a note. Emergency removal due to unsafe living conditions. Mother deemed unfit. Biological father waived parental claim in writing. Case closed. Adopted via private fast track. I blinked at the words. Wait. Emergency removal? Harper nodded slowly. Elena, this wasn't a voluntary adoption. It wasn't even planned. Liam was taken. My mouth went dry. But Tessa said. She gave him up because she had to, not because she wanted to. That night, I confronted Tessa. We met in my driveway. She looked thinner, like guilt had chewed her down to bones. You lied, I said. Her eyes flicked up. What now? About Liam. He wasn't given up. He was taken. She backed up, panic crawling across her face. I didn't think you'd find out. Why did they take him? She clutched her arms. I had a breakdown. After Daniel chose you. I was drinking. Leaving Liam with strangers. I didn't think they'd report me. My voice turned cold. And Daniel? He refused to take custody. Said if he did, it would ruin his chances with you. I stared at her like she was a stranger. So he let his son get taken away, to protect a lie. She nodded, crying. I begged him. He said if I loved him, I'd walk away. So I signed. They processed everything in 2 weeks. That was the final fracture. Daniel had stood by and done nothing while his son was taken from a collapsing mother and handed to strangers. He didn't just lie, he abandoned his child. And now Liam was old enough to want answers. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I wrote everything down. The messages. The timeline. The printed emails. The documents from Child Services. I compiled it all. Then I made 3 copies. One for me. One for Jillian. And one, delivered anonymously, to Daniel's boss. 3 days later, Daniel was suspended pending an internal review. His company had strict ethics guidelines, especially around family court records and non-disclosure. Tessa vanished. She left the city. No word, no apology, just a half-folded goodbye letter shoved under my door. And me? I finally felt clean. Jillian and I kept in touch. She invited me to Liam's birthday that spring. He was turning 8. When I showed up, he ran up and hugged me. Tightly. No hesitation. Like somehow he knew I'd fought for him. And in that moment, surrounded by streamers and cake and laughter, I understood something important. This story didn't end with betrayal. It ended with choice. Mine. To walk away. To dig. To protect. To tell the truth, even when others chose to bury it. Final lines from Elena Carter. I lost a husband. I lost a sister. But I found the one thing worth more than both. A little boy who needed someone to stand up and say, "You mattered. You were never disposable. You were never a mistake." And I'll keep saying it, for as long as he needs to hear it.